Good evening. The Rochester City School District is committed to the safety and preparedness of the students, its staff, and its visitors. Education Law 8, CRR-New York, Section 155.17 requires the Board of Education to adopt a comprehensive district-wide school safety plan and building-level emergency response plans regarding crisis intervention and emergency response and management. Our district-wide school safety plan is an all-hazards approach to crisis management and focuses on mitigation, prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery procedures. The district-wide school safety plan is implemented at the time of an emergency at the direction of the superintendent and/or her staff. Incident commanders, which are usually school principals, will implement building emergency response plans when directed by their respective school chief, deputy superintendent, or the chief operations officer. In the absence of direction from the senior administration, each building incident commander is authorized and directed to implement this plan or take action as may be, in her or his judgment, necessary to save the lives and mitigate the effects of emergencies. A copy of the district-wide safety plan is available on the district's website at https://www.rcsdk12.org/safety plan. The 30-day public comment period has now concluded for the district-wide school safety plan. Although no written comments have been received, this hearing is an opportunity for any final comments on the plan. The Board of Education will be considering a resolution to accept the district-wide safety plan on Thursday, August 26, 2021, at the regular scheduled business meeting. At this time, there are no speakers. Is that correct, Board Clerk?
There are no speakers, correct?
Okay, well, with that, we thank you all for coming out tonight, and that concludes the district-wide school safety plan public hearing tonight. Thank you. Meeting to order. The time is 5:36 p.m. and this is an official call to order of the convening of Financial Committee of the Whole. I'm going to ask the board clerk to do a roll call for the record.
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Malloy?
Here.
Commissioner Powell?
Here.
Commissioner Adams?
Here.
Commissioner LeBron?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Blessed and here.
Thank you. I think, and then you got
And then Commissioner Vice President Elliott has indicated to the board that she is out this week on vacation. I find this to be an acceptable excuse absent, and I look to the board to support that.
Madam Chair, I do not support that. When I was on vacation, I did not ask for an excused absence.
Let me just note respectfully, Commissioner Powell, I would note that and of course you could disagree with this, I would note that in most jobs, you're given vacation. This is, even though it's described as a part-time job, this, as you know, is a full-time job, and I think my position that I take when I have the gavel is that it is an appropriate exercise of a presiding officer's authority to recognize that as a legitimate absence. And I don't have the records in front of me, but I did want to let you know that if I was chairing the meeting where you were absent, and I believe I was, I think I recognize it as a legitimate absence. I certainly would have. But I respect the fact that you can have your own separate opinion, but I just wanted to note that. Thanks.
Okay, well, all I would add to that, though, Mr. President, is when I communicated to you that I was not going to be present, I told you I did not want to be excused. I didn't think it was appropriate to be excused.
You did say that. You did say that in that email. I rejected that advice, by the way, but you did say that. Yeah. You did. I support it, though.
Okay. Anybody else wants to have a say on the record?
I
Clerk?
support.
I support it.
Ditto.
Thank you. I don't think we take an official vote, but it looks like we have a board majority in support of allowing Vice President Elliott to have an excused absence for the matter of vacation. At this time, I'm actually going to ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss the matters of the appointment of a particular individual. Can I have that motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold
We're
on one
gonna
second.
go-
We're gonna take that vote on the record with board docs.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes.
We're doing votes on board docs for the general public who's watching as well. This is our new system we're transitioning to do votes.
Who seconded?
Commissioner Adams.
Thank you.
And while we wait for the board and the superintendent, we are going into the small conference room right here across the hallway. That's where we're going to be. Madam Clerk?
Okay, it looks,
Hold on.
it might not be that it's logged in. I will do the vote manually on this end.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And we'll check it before we start again, Clerk, to make sure that.
All right, we're all set. That is 6 votes in the affirmative.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're out of executive, and I'm not going to call on the resolution till we get to that time. And then at that time, we can open discussions for the resolution that's being walked on. It's my understanding from our board clerk and board staff that we have no speakers tonight on the speakers list. So that is the next item. Can I have a motion for the minutes for May 18, 2021 and June 15, 2021 for Finance Cal?
So moved. Oh,
Second.
Did you grab
Madam
that,
Chair?
Commissioner Clerk? Yes.
I have a correction to offer for the minutes for June 15 on page 2. Just below the heading, review and discuss financial reports. The CFO, Carlene Pierce's name is misspelled.
thank you.
It
Change it.
appears about 3 times in the document and misspelled once.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll accept the motion with those corrections then. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Do you want us to vote on those in the system? Okay, we'll have a vote that popped up.
Oh.
There you go, Commissioner Clerk.
Madam Clerk,
Yes,
if I press the wrong button, is there any way to take that back?
yes.
Yes, I can do that from here.
All right, see, so we're learning. I pressed no, and I meant to press yes, of course.
Oh, President White, also,
there a
can I
way?
just show you in the corner right here? When you vote, it should say
Oh, I
change
see.
vote in
Yeah,
red.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, if you click on that, you can change your vote in that corner right there. You see it? Yeah.
It's not doing anything.
Oh, it's not doing it?
I didn't notice it, so thank you for pointing that out.
Oh,
but
it
yeah,
it
it's not-
popped up for me.
It's not doing anything.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, on the red, on the actual red
Yeah.
change vote.
She's my witness. I'm definitely clicking on the red.
You clicking it? Oh, yours popped up, mine's too, okay.
It's because I'm changing it. It's fine.
Okay.
No worries,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
though.
We'll try it for the next one. if
Next
we
time
have
I
an
make,
issue.
right, that's right. And there will be a next time.
Yeah. I'm actually going to move the resolutions up so that we can have discussion, vote on them, and then we'll go into the annual claims audit report, if that's acceptable to folks, because we only have 2 resolutions up on the floor. So can I get a motion for resolution 80 and 81?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on resolutions 80 and 81?
Commissioner Malloy has a question.
Yep, Commissioner Malloy?
So yeah, I think there were concerns about why there aren't names that appear on number 80.
Really quickly, can we vote on, oh, no, that's fine. When we go to 81, can we do it separately from 80? Can we do 2 separate votes? Because I don't have them bundled in the system, so we'll just have to take them separately. The vote one more time.
So do I have to do the motion separately? I did a motion for 2.
Yes, so we'll just have to do 81 after this. After,
I already did a motion for both though, and it's all open on the floor.
It's open on the floor, then just.
no, I just mean in the system, if I can just
That's fine.
have you guys do it.
Okay,
It's
So-
just a technical thing, it's fine.
okay.
yeah, it's
So when I vote, then we'll
Yeah.
vote on 80, take the vote from left to right in the system, and then we'll go back and vote 81, just so everyone's clear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, Desiree? Yeah, it's off.
How that? Better? Okay, there we go. So I can explain why there are no names on this resolution. There are between 20 and 25 IEPs, individualized education programs, that we have to do a review according to State Education Department for when they pulled for the most recent corrective action plan. The present levels of performance and the goals need to be updated. It requires attendance by the teacher of the student, both the general education teacher of the student and the special education teacher of the student. We are now scouring those IEPs to identify those names, but I felt it was important that we move this forward so that we can ensure, I tried to reach out to State Ed twice to see if we could conduct these meetings after the school year started to get an extension, but both requests were denied. So I feel that at this point, we need to ensure that the IEPs are in compliance by the time the school starts. So that's why the names are not on there right now, but I can provide them as soon as we identify all of them, and we need to call all those teachers to ensure they can participate through a Zoom meeting. It's about 1 hour for each meeting.
Yeah, Commissioner Powell?
So there's likely to be many more than just two, where the resolution has 2 slots.
So it-
Presumably because 108 hours of total time is needed? Is it I guess this is a question for our legal counsel, is it problematic that there are 2 slots? Only 2 people are going to be in any given meeting at any given time, right?
So I tried to portray this the way it needs to be. So it's 1 special education teacher for each meeting, specific names of teachers not yet determined because it depends on the teacher that is needed per student. So it's 1 special ed, 1 gen ed for about an hour. We're thinking it's, depending on how long the meetings go, hopefully, I think we can keep these to an hour. It's about 54 hours, but it could be 1 teacher for 5 meetings, so they would have 5 hours of this additional pay.
I understand, thank you.
Okay.
I actually have a question in regards to that, because the way that it's also written at 55 an hour at the rate of 1 of the 200, that rate for different educators varies depending on how long they've been at the district and where they're at. So not everyone's going to be paid 55 an hour based on their rate, unless you're saying it's stipend $55 an hour no matter what.
I think when we put this together, we went off on previous resolutions, and that's how we've submitted those. But if there's more specific numbers, I assure you we won't go past that total amount that's in the resolution. So I don't see this as, we just have to get them done like in 2 weeks. They have to be signed, sealed, delivered, and we'll have to make adjustments when we provide names and give you exact costs.
Also, the way I understand it is the rate can change based on the assigned personnel when I look at the prefix to the resolution.
It could.
So just for clarity, you're saying you're not going to go over $5,940? Because that's the total?
I don't anticipate that will be. I think the corrections, I don't even foresee that the meeting will take an hour. Most of the time we give it about an hour, but I'm hoping that these are corrections that could be made prior to the meeting so that the families can see them, and then we just have a meeting just to approve them at the CSC.
And then just final question, if this was budgeted for the 21-22 budget year?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Was this budgeted, was this an anticipated expenditure, or this is an additional expenditure to the budget?
This is additional, but because of the savings that we were able to create in the grant, it's a grant, summer school grant budget. This is money that was available not to exceed any of the grant money that we received for the ESY year, extended school year.
And the ESY grant allows this type of expenditure? Because isn't ESY for summer school for students under special education classification?
Yes, but that also includes holding CSE meetings for students.
Okay. All right, I have no additional questions. Does anybody else have any additional questions? All right, we are going to vote
That's it.
on additional pay resolution 2122-number 80. It should be up on our screens to take the official vote.
And we're verbally voting as well?
Yep, so all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Board Clerk Collier, does that pass?
It does pass, that passed 6-0.
Thank you.
So I'm going to just open the voting for 81 with the same.
Yep, we're going to vote for resolution 2021-22, resolution number 81, and we should have a pop-up on our screen shortly to vote.
It flipped it in the system, so you are voting on 80 now, too.
The other one was labeled 80.
The other one was 81. So I called it 80, but it was 81, so.
Okay. And we're verbally voting. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
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 All right, at this time, I'm going to ask for a presentation on the annual claims audit report with our claims auditor. Is she presenting or is Naraki presenting?
Naraki is going to present.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. We can't see you, but we heard you, so good evening.
I'm just gonna start to share my screen if that's all right.
Do we have that presentation?
Yep, presentation is in board docs.
All right, so first I'd like to thank the commissioners for having me this evening. And it's been a pleasure, and it's hard to believe that we are already at a full year of service to the district, but we're excited to present our year-end report to the board. So begin, the first page is just our transmittal to the board. The page of our report, as seen in the same format as our month-to-month reports, we've summarized the entire year. So just to give you a brief summary, total number of transactions is from all 4 systems: PeopleSoft, Concur Invoices, Concur Expenses, and the P-Card system is 17,392. Total number, dollar value of those transactions are approximately $555 million. Total increase made for the year are 3,242, approximately $67 million. Resolved as of today's date are 3,120, almost the full amount of the total increase, 66,831,526.46. And total outstanding, which we are following up on every time that we audit, new information becomes available, are 122, and that's approximately $59,000. What we did that's a little bit different board for the year end, we have created some tables and graphs kind of to summarize this for each system as a not only from a month-to-month perspective on the total number of inquiries as it compares to the total number of transactions per system, but also percentage of not only the number of inquiries, but also the dollar value of those values of inquiries. So we can kind of get an idea of where the district should be spending its time in terms of some corrective action. And those would be in Exhibit 1s. But first, I would like to point out observations and recommendations, and we have 3 of them. These are the top 3 areas where we feel that the district, if they spend the most time on them, can make the most improvement. And that would be in the area of invoices that were processed with over 90 days outstanding. And basically, this observation and recommendation comes in terms of the fact that we want the district to be efficient in its processing of its invoices and as well as its payments. It would allow the district better control of its finances throughout the year as if it's processing as it's receiving invoices. So that's basically where that observation and recommendation comes in. The second observation and recommendation has to do with invoices dated prior to purchase orders. This recommendation is asking the district to follow the purchasing policy in terms of encumbering funds prior to committing those funds for the district. And again, that would allow the district to have better control over its financial operations as well as help it plan and budget throughout the year. And the third area where we see could be the most improvement is in P cards with obtaining supporting documentation from its card holders on a timely basis so that they could be audited and the district has all the necessary documentation that it needs to process and pay that bill as it comes in. Are there any questions before we move to the exhibit in terms of either the table on the first page or any of the recommendations?
I would like to include the cover memo, which has been provided to the board, contains CFO Pierce's corrective actions for the recommendations which have been offered. So I just want to let you know that we did meet and discuss this, and she already does have corrective actions, all of which she's anticipating will be completed by the end of September. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention that they're not hanging out there, these recommendations. They've already been addressed. Thank you.
Are there any questions from any of the commissioners? I just have a quick question on the recommendations. I want to uplift that our CFO is actually out sick today. So I do apologize for not mentioning that earlier. She also was supposed to be a part of these conversations. And it's part of why we had to move some things around earlier. The recommendations, and I'll just pinpoint the P cards. Ooh, okay. So when I started, there was already a state audit around the P cards. The P cards have been a corrective action item for the last 2.5 years, if not longer in this district. I see that it's come up again here as an observation and a recommendation, and I want to uplift that to Naraki to let them know that it has come up multiple times, and I see that we have responded, but my concern is the accountability around that response internally. So this has been an issue across multiple superintendents at this point, and their administration and team, and across 3 different CFOs. So I guess I'm just wondering what makes I don't know. I don't know how we're going to hold people accountable to these P cards.
If I can offer a couple of comments, obviously I'm not CFO Pierce, but we've talked about this quite a bit. There are fewer purchasing cards available, so our historical practice had quite a bit of non-compliance. It has greatly minimized the sheer volume of P cards available, so the screening process has been changed a bit. She's changing the P card platform. And in addition to that, she now has kind of a mandatory process where there is more visibility to those transactions. So her expectation and her plan to at least document the non-compliance is what we're hoping is going to be a little bit different in this particular case. But surely by the decrease in numbers, it should help the amount of non-compliance you're dealing with.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yes.
I've been meeting with CFO Pierce relative to this throughout the summer. And I can't remember if it's September or October, but there will be a formal process rolled out that we can share first in the Friday letter, and then we can talk about that, but that's something that we've been working on for several months, because we recognize this is an issue. As Anissa said, it's better, but it's not completely fixed nor addressed, but we are working very diligently on this.
Thank you, Anissa, and thank you, Dr. Myers-Smalls.
You're welcome.
And just to add to that, in terms of the P cards, the 341 that you are seeing as part of the inquiries, that doesn't mean that we haven't obtained supporting documentation. That in terms of our follow-up from month to month, the timing from not having that documentation to having that documentation has increased. You don't see that this supporting documentation has been provided. It's just that we want to kind of speed up the timing of cardholders submitting that information.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Powell?
My question on recommendation 3, the CFO's response reads, the new procurement card platform is scheduled to go live 9/7. Is that platform housed with the bank that provides the P cards, or is that something on our end?
Superintendent Myers-Small, would you like me to answer, or?
I'm gonna, yes, because I don't
Okay.
remember
So-
what that was.
No problem. So the
That's why I'm
historical practice
pausing.
was we used an M&T platform, and it wasn't overly robust. It
Okay.
also was not our banking relationship of record, which was with Chase. So this transition right now that we're going through is we're actually moving the P-card platform to Chase. And then
That's right.
it is a little bit more robust system, so it will actually help us to improve the monitoring and some of the reporting that we're going to get out of it.
Okay, so because of the Zoom quality, I only heard some of what you said, so let me try some active listening. I heard you say that our P-card vendor is Chase, and I heard you say that we're moving the platform to Chase. Is that right so far?
No, so our P-card vendor has been M&T Bank.
Oh,
That is the prior vendor. So they had their own proprietary software. And now we're switching to Chase, which happens to be our banking relationship of record. And so moving to Chase, they also have a more robust software to support P-card.
Okay, so the new procurement card platform is essentially a new vendor. Got it.
Correct.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
If no one has any other questions, I will just go briefly to our exhibits just to explain those a bit and how we presented those to the board. So each of these systems has a kind of a one sheet informational sheet, and it gives you the total number of transactions compared to the total number of transactions that had inquiries from a month-to-month basis, similar to the information that you were getting in our previous exhibits. And we did the same for the dollar values here as well. So the orange would be the total the orange bars would be the total number of transactions audited that month, and the blue bars. On the other side of the page, we've also incorporated some pie charts just to provide a little bit of a visual representation. And this is indicating percentage based on the number of total inquiries that we've assessed for the district. And that is where we came up with our recommendations to provide to this evening based on these pie charts. So where we've seen areas for most improvement throughout all 4 systems. So that has been with the processing of invoices in a timely manner, processing, encumbering the funds prior to, committing those funds on behalf of the district. And then as we go through the different systems, you'll see that that kind of theme flows through the other systems as well, in terms of where the district should be focusing its manpower in terms of corrective action. So these invoice over 90s for the Concur system, and then here would be the documentation not ready for review for the system. So I think in terms of obtaining a new software with a little bit more robust capabilities for the district, it's a good corrective action. And as you make a transition into the system, a new system, then it encourages a very thorough look at who has access and if we still want to give those individuals access going into the new system. Are there on your end report?
Yep, Commissioner Clark?
Yes. I had a question regarding the number of claims that you audit on a monthly basis. What percentage, I'm sure you're not doing 100%. Is there a percentage
Yes.
that you use, and what makes you decide whether you're going to dig deeper into a certain area such as P cards or over 90 days?
So we audit 100% of all of the district's transactions.
Right.
So all of the, and I'll just go back up to the summary. So this is 100% of the district's transactions for the entire school year, and we've audited all 17,392 transactions for that dollar.
Okay, the other thing I noticed was when I looked at some of the areas, like the invoices over 90 days outstanding, and do you give us any kind of report on late fees that we have to pay as a result of invoices that are not paid on a timely basis?
So I think Anissa will speak to the fact that I don't believe the district is subject to late fees per se. That's kind of just a comment that we normally assume with paying invoices late, but I think Anissa can speak to that.
So specifically, we as a district, our practice is that we don't pay late fees. We kind of state that out there out front. There are very few instances in which a late fee would potentially take place. That would be things such as like government payments where they're taxes or assessed fees. So, IRS or something along the lines of county tax lien, that type of thing. But our operating practice is that we do not pay the late fees. So that we just we're the big dog in town and we don't pay late fees, and that's just how it happens. So that's not a specific risk that does happen as it relates to the timing of our transactions. Secondary to that point, your initial inquiry was about percentage of claims audited. So there was sometime a few years back, there was the opportunity to do statistical sampling of our claims. It was when we had the in-house claims auditing team. That legislation sunset, and therefore, if we were not already participating in a statistical sample of those claims, we would then need to maintain at 100%.
President White?
Yeah, I'm looking at page 2 of 4 in the summary, and it says that, just want to make sure I understand what that baby blue, about half of that circle is. It says invoices over 90 days outstanding. Is that the vendor being slow with the invoice, or is that us? What does that phrase mean?
It could be a combination of items. It could be the vendor providing service and slow to get the district its invoice. It could also be a delay in coming from the individual departments of sign-offs in terms of processing by the accounts payable department. So it could be a combination.
Is this an unusual occurrence? I mean, I see this significant number in the pie chart above that, invoices over 90.
It's
Is that typical?
occurrence in the districts that we see, especially a district of your size, coming from decentralized, decentralized buildings and a number of departments. Collecting these invoices can be cumbersome and timely. So it is a common occurrence, definitely in a district of your size, but also in a much smaller school districts as well.
And one more thing, Madam Chairperson. I just wanted to note to Naraki Smith LLP and to our Auditor General, Anissa Henry Wheeler, as you know, we had some really committed district employees providing these services internally for years, and occasionally they would have some challenges here or there. But I must say, despite their dedication and their real commitment to the district, I think this is a really powerful decision that the board made to go with you all. And this chart alone, this year-end summary, provides evidence that this was a good decision that the board made. And I'm happy that, personally, happy that we engaged you all, because the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. This is exemplary work, and I just want to say I appreciate that.
All right, I just have one question on this pie chart, actually, and it has to do, let me go to board docs, because I am in multiple screens here. Just on page 3 of 4, it shows up on page 4 of 4, what on the pie chart other represents?
So other would be anything that falls below the threshold of 1%. So that fell below 1% of total transactions audited, we put in the category of other. Those things or those inquiries would be listed, and I just draw your attention to the last page of our written report. Those findings would be listed here. So incorrect remittance addresses, which were immediately corrected by accounts payable, insufficient documentation, which was again, as well as incorrect invoice amount, incorrect invoice date, were immediately corrected by the accounts payable department. Items prohibited per policy, so that is something that we are bringing to the attention of the purchasing department in terms of the use of P cards. Not that it's prohibited for the district to purchase the items, it was just prohibited per district policy to be purchased via the P card. And paid sales tax, again, would be immediately removed by the accounts payable department. So anything that falls into the other category is listed here, and they just fell below 1%. So they just wouldn't have been seen on a pie chart. So we categorize them into the other category.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Powell?
I heard, again, the audio is a little tough for me. I heard you say something about the sales tax, and I see on the pie chart that 5% of the total value and 6% of the number of inquiries have sales tax paid. Are actions being taken to recover sales tax paid since we're tax exempt? Or is that,
Yes,
is that our responsibility?
So anything processed via accounts payable that's paid sales tax is removed, released by the district. And then anything that received sales tax on the P card side of things is being removed in conjunction with support from your vendor.
I see. So the vendor essentially refunds us and then facilitates
Correct.
clawing that sales tax back from the source of the purchase?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my board parent rep, Rebecca Harrington, has a question.
Yes.
Hi. On the page 4 of 4, it lists items prohibited per policy. Is there a policy within the district that goes about either correcting that or somehow recollecting? Like, what happens?
So in terms of, you do have a procedures manual in terms of using the P card. In terms of the item being prohibited, it's not prohibited for the district to purchase the item in general. It's just prohibited according to that manual that it be purchased through the P card, the use of the P card. It should go through the normal purchasing process. So it's not that the funds have to be, kind of reimbursed to the district. It's just that we need to have some corrective action in terms of educating the card holders in terms of how they and what types of purchases they should be using the P card for. And I think that process is going to happen when the district rolls out the new P card system and designates its card holders.
Is that part of the over with the new P card system? As far as holding people accountable for not purchasing, using P cards
Yes,
from that prohibited list, and that they'll go into the appropriate.
holding folks accountable is definitely a part of that, yes.
Thank you.
Might I also add that in the event someone does purchase something that should not be purchased, as in is an inappropriate item for the district, we will collect a check back and not pay for it with district funds. And that has happened in the past.
Okay, so I am going to thank you to Naraki and thank you to our General Auditor, Anissa Henry Wheeler. And at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the claims audit report.
So moved.
Motion?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then we're going to vote on record as well. So if you go back to board docs, it should pop up. All right, the next item is actually resolutions consideration, but we moved those up to be B and the presentation to be C. So next up, we're going to move right into discussion topics. And I put energy efficient audits here, and I have two gentlemen who will introduce themselves and the company that they work for. But in full disclosure, when I put this on, we had a pre-finance conversation, and it's come to my attention that internally the district had already selected a company to move forward in doing this work. However, I've requested that we still move forward with the presentation and learn more about energy efficient audits and what they can provide to a district. In addition, I've requested that the district provide information as to how they selected the company that they selected, what matrix was used, if there was an RFP, how many individuals applied for the RFP, and then also how many of those individuals were MWBE. And so there will be no names presented on that, but there was information that will be available to the board. Commissioner Powell?
A point of order, Commissioner Adams was not able to vote on that last bit, and it didn't pop up on his screen, so if the clerk will take
So
his voice
I know
vote.
that he was absent at the vote, so with board docs, when someone is not at the table, I record absent at the time of the vote.
Yeah.
So we were able to move on without him.
Is it possible to allow him the opportunity to vote now that he is here?
I
We
can,
already voted.
He wasn't, he was marked absent, but he's here now.
I know, but I don't think that that's how that works, but I'll refer to Steve.
you weren't actually here during the time of the vote, I wasn't looking up at the podium.
No.
Yeah, then it should be recorded as absent during the vote.
But he was here throughout the whole discussion, and we haven't really moved on.
We are
We
moving on
haven't
to a whole
received
completely
any new-
different topic.
We haven't received any presentations at this point in time. I request the indulgence of the chair to allow him to cast his vote. He listened to the entire conversation. He understands what the vote would be for. He should be allowed to vote.
If you want to scrap.
It's a no for me. We already moved on. I'm
But you're
introducing and going over the energy efficient audit folks and so that they can go to their presentation.
I'd like to appeal the decision of the chair.
President White?
Yeah, Steve, is there a technical or parliamentary reason why he could not? I don't even know what commissioners are, but it seems to me that there's no reason why he should not be able to. But if there's a parliamentary reason why he can't, I respect that. But
When the vote is closed under Robert's rules, the vote is closed. There's no reopening to add, unless it would affect the outcome of the vote.
It won't.
In which case, it seems like it passed by enough of a majority that it won't. Because then somebody who was either recorded as absent or voted in the minority would have the opportunity to ask for it to be reopened, but that's not the case here. So I think that it stays as a absent vote. That under the Robert's rules, that's my ruling as parliamentarian, so.
Agree.
Commissioner LeBron, Commissioner Malloy.
Oh, Commissioner.
Thank
Malloy.
you. Just in Commissioner Adams' defense, he did arrive as we were voting, and it wasn't up on his screen. So he arrived right at the tail end of the vote, and we had literally just taken the vote. We hadn't moved on yet. He sat down, and I think that's kind of where we're coming from, because he sat down and we were trying to help him get back into the meeting so it would pop up on his screen. It just never did. So he was attempting to take that vote. That's why we're asking for an exception to be made. And our acting counsel indicated that he didn't know if he was back or not. He didn't see him as absent.
Furthermore, aren't there exceptions to the Roberts rules in the case of small meeting?
There are, but that's generally something that the chair has the power to enforce.
Commissioner, President White, can you give me 1 second? I actually would like to hear from Commissioner Adams if he cares to even have this discussion, to have a vote on the report. It's the auditor's report, if you want to vote on it.
Yes, I do.
Okay. President White?
yeah, now, Steve, having heard, because I wasn't looking at Commissioner Adams either, I knew he came in, but I wasn't thinking when was he there when we were actually calling the vote, but apparently two members of this board have said he was actually here when the vote was taking place, just could not access his. Does that change your assessment? Because he wasn't technically absent, is what they're saying.
Well, we're in a weird hybrid situation. He was not present for the voice vote, so normally that's all we do. Now that we're into the board docs, I mean, Commissioner LeBron, as chair of this current section, can decide to allow it, and quite frankly, I don't know that makes a whole lot of difference, but given the technical changeover we're having right now, it wouldn't be out of order for her to decide to do so. It's just not, I don't believe it's mandated in either direction, quite frankly, so I don't. Given that the voice vote was the first thing you all did, but then if it didn't pop up on his screen for the clicking vote, we're kind of in a complete split. This is not covered by Robert's rules, I assure you. This is a very unusual situation that we have with two different methodologies of voting at the moment. So if you want to put it up on the screen for Commissioner, I mean, we could reopen the vote, put the vote back up. I'm gonna defer to Commissioner LeBron, quite frankly, at this moment.
So,
Yeah, oh, go ahead, Commissioner Adams.
so my vote isn't going to make a difference.
No.
So I'm fine with however this goes. I think it's important to the public who we have on and occupied to move on.
Okay. Thank you. And interestingly enough, the Robert's rules were raised in small organizations, but in Robert's rules, it also states if we have an electronic voting system, we technically could be considered a large organization. I won't go into the details of that. We're in this hybrid stage right now. However, back to the fact that I do have some gentlemen here to present, and so thank you for your patience tonight. I've asked them to present no longer than 15 minutes. with Q&A from the board. We are not voting on anything tonight. This is strictly for informational purposes. And then in addition, as I said, the district has undergone already a selection process for someone to do this type of work. And I have requested how many individuals applied to the RFP, when the RFP was open and active, how many were MWBEs, and the matrix for the selection process for the district. That has not come forth before the board yet. That will be forthcoming in the future. But again, I'm going to turn it over to Randy and Sean.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. First of all, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. Secondly, I want to thank the board for its public service. It's quite a heavy lifting to be on a board of a school board tasked with the responsibility of making kids into older adults that can be functioning in our society. That's heavy lifting by itself. But on top of that, now you have to deal with a pandemic and deal with making the schools safe for your students, faculty, and staff. And I want to thank you guys for doing that. My name is Randy Bates. I'm a registered agent for Auxiliary Services Utility, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike Erickson, who is Vice President of the company.
Thanks, Randy, and thank you, School Board. I would, is there a way that I can get a shared screen?
Yes, you should have the rights to do that.
Okay. Everybody able to see that?
Yeah, we can see it. If you all can email that to our board clerk, so that way she can share it with the entire board. It's difficult for us to view it from our seat to where the screen is at.
Okay, that's good to know. So it'll help me when I explain what we're doing here. We are on-site utility services capital. We're a company that started back in 1993 as Alternative Utility Services, which is one of our main businesses as well. We've been providing customers with means and ways to reduce their energy usage, as well as reduce their energy, gas, and electric costs, as we are procurement specialists as well. So we have a broad range of products and offerings and services that address energy consumption, reduction in energy consumption, and reduction in energy overall costs, and improvement in facility infrastructure. As I mentioned, we've been doing this since 1993. We provide energy efficiency services, and we also work in reducing energy consumption, water conservation, et cetera, and so forth. We created what we call our Energy Savings as a Service funding platform, mainly because many of our customers who wanted us to help them reduce their energy consumption wanted to find a way to do that without a lot of capital expense. So we, with our expertise and doing some solar energy development back in 2012 to 2014, we had put together a very good investment group and approached them on doing energy efficiency projects, which was another big growing entity, and worked out a program that would do that they would want to invest in. So we created the Energy Savings as a Service funding platform for that allowed our customers to do energy upgrades without capital expense, without the upfront capital expense. In addition, because using savings as a service, it is a service contract. It's a term service agreement. So it has the ability and the benefit of being able to treat it off balance sheet, which means that if you are looking to protect bond ratings or to protect your credit references and credit means, is a way to keep it off balance sheet, and we have structured it that way. We built a nationwide and scalable network of contractors, of engineers, of auditors, of all sorts of fulfillment providers in order for us to be able to affect energy efficiency upgrades pretty much anywhere in the US. We're doing it now and working on a program to launch in Mexico, and we funded projects up in Canada, but we're still pretty much focused here in the US. In addition to that, what we do with our contractors and channel partners is provide them a means to fund their own projects. So it's a two-way street, and it basically allows us to use local contractors anytime we need to hire those to fulfill our own projects with our own customers. So how do we do this? Basically, it's a program that we've been able to let our clients and customers know that the old adage of it's not in the budget, frankly, under this program, it is. We help them discover that what we're trying to do and what they are able to do is use monies that are already spent, that you're going to spend year after year after year in your expense budget, that we will go after and look at those and show you a way that we can use those monies already that you're going to spend year after year after year, increasing and increasing year after year, to be able to turn those expense dollars into the power of a capital budget. It just simply needs to be discovered. How we do it, mainly it's these two line items that are typically some of the highest line items in your annual budgets. Those are for the utilities, which would be gas, electric, in some cases water, and other utilities. We actually work in waste management, and also telecommunications. But typically we're going after gas and electric infrastructure. So that line item, which is one of the highest, and also operating expenses with aging and existing equipment. I know you've been embarked on a facilities rehabilitation program over the last several years. So we're here to provide you perhaps a means of helping you accomplish that with a lot less capital and in a much faster way. How do we do it again? Basically, this is the structure. The left bar it represents a current energy and maintenance expense on energy infrastructure, whether it's lighting or HVAC or just power optimization technologies that exist today. So that would, under a current structure, you say you're paying $42,000 a year for that. The measures that we look at and focus on that are costing you that, after we implement them, they're designed to reduce that by, in this case, down to $10,000, meaning that you have a $32,000 reduction in those existing ongoing expenses. Well, for the measures we provide, we use a percentage of that, and the rest of that in the green bar are the expenses you shave that you can put back into circulation to spend somewhere else. Typically, our service terms on our programs that we do can run anywhere from 4 years to 7 or 10 years. Typical is 5-year service terms. And at the end of that service term, the intention is to abandon the equipment. So it's also a way of owning the equipment after the service term. So after the service term, that payment in the middle bar goes away, and it's a lot. So you've now created an ongoing reduction forever through those technologies. That's the basic plan of doing it. So what our program is able to do is immediately reduce your energy expenses, and that last case was $27,000. You reduce operating expenses for that because this is a service contract. So typically all of the equipment that we put in is covered under our maintenance, and we do the administration of warranties. You get the benefit of using and getting out of it what that equipment produces rather than having to buy, own, and maintain it. Overall, those expenses are used to pay for that. That $32,000 actually paid for $127,000 in capital costs for those efficiency upgrades. So if you have a district-wide that we can find $500,000 savings in your facilities annually, that would generate enough savings to do almost $2 million of what you would be of capital improvements. And that's just focused typically on energy infrastructure. allowing you to use your other capital budget to do the things that you normally wouldn't do under a program like this. What are the applications? Well, we've done lighting. We do a lot of HVAC and ventilation systems. Those in universities or in places that have large food service, we do refrigeration systems with variable speed motors and all of those kinds of things. We do power factor correction and optimization, technologies that actually reduce your overall energy costs by 6 to 10%, simply by cleaning up the raw energy that's coming in and taking out all of the harmonic distortions and over voltages that we don't allow into or through your meters that can automatically reduce expenses by not metering energy that you don't even use. So there are neat technologies that are capable of doing that. Recently, of course, because of COVID and getting back into school buildings and the interest in indoor air quality and reduction of pathogens and COCs and VOCs, we represent some technologies that provide induct reductions that are capable. So we can do clean air as a service, lighting as a service, HVAC as a service, all sorts of different controls as a service that allows you to focus and channel your capital, your precious capital elsewhere that is more in line with your mission to educate. So energy savings as a service is a platform that you can use that uses your existing expense budget, because we are able to install state-of-the-art technologies for you with no investment and no debt. Typically, the savings generated are more than what the service fees are, even though we've had clients who said, if you can break even, why wouldn't I put in these new technologies that over the long haul are going to be much more beneficial. So you reduce your energy consumption, you'll be paying less immediately from day one. Again, most of the equipment that we put in is our maintenance. We are taking over the maintenance for you, so that eliminates that budget line item. Again, it's a service agreement, so it provides you the ability to do off-balance sheet treatment. What we do is we guarantee the technology's performance, and that's through our maintenance and monitoring capabilities. So if that technology is performing to manufacturer's specifications, the savings that we have calculated for you and validated will happen. And finally, being able to do all of these energy efficiency things, you can hit your carbon reduction goals and objectives while you're doing the same thing and improving the facilities on the inside. I've got a couple of things for you. I'll just run through how we do this. It's kind of like an 8-step process. And basically our intent is, as I mentioned, is that we don't charge you anything until we have validated that there is a benefit there for you. And how we do that simply is we take step one, where we try to gather some preliminary information. So before we get too involved, we know that there's a business case here for you and some benefits. We provide you with a kind of a 10,000-foot level in step two with a proposition based on our knowledge of the systems that we have and preliminary data that we've collected and what the potential opportunities are for you. Once we agree to that proposition, we go to step three and perform an on-site energy audit and gather up all the details we need to validate what we've proposed to you in that memorandum of understanding. We through that study provide you with suggestions and recommendations for measures that you can select that would provide you the best bang for your buck, and to try to make sure that those things that we are presenting to you will pay for themselves. At the end of the service term, again, the intention is to own the equipment. You will own the equipment. You will get 100% of the savings, and any value from that is yours. Your savings are from day one. Our service fees are fixed. They aren't guaranteed. They're guaranteed to be validated, and then the performance of the equipment to do that. But on the other hand, we fix the payment. So any increases over those years in energy costs, operational expenses are your advantage. We don't increase our payment to guarantee a 10% savings. That way, you're able to benefit quite a bit more than from a performance-based guaranteed savings contract. Again, we acquire and install and retrofit the equipment, commission it, perform it, you check it out with us when it's installed, and only then do you sign the acceptance and then commence the program. One thing I will let you know is this is I want to give you a little bit of an impact, because I'm not sure how much of the things that we might be talking about that you might have accomplished already in some of your facility upgrades. But typically, it takes a long time, and I know you're in phases doing that from your website. So maybe we can help get you done quicker. And here's an example. This happens to be some grocery stores. There were 5 of them that we did in greater Chicago area. We did multiple measures, from refrigeration cases to lighting to motors, HVAC, all of that type of stuff. But what this allowed them to do, and this was a total of about $650,000 to $700,000 capital expense. They wouldn't have done this on these stores except over a long period of time, probably one a year, if that. So by the time they would have gotten to the 5th year, or about the final 2 or 3 stores, that's 3 to 5 years of time that they could have saved the money that is listed like in this. And if you can read it, but I will tell you that the measures that we put in, their annual gross savings was almost $311,000 out of those 5 stores. The annual service payments were $172,000. So they put $139,000 back in their pocket from what they were paying and did all 5 stores. So in other words, that $139,000 might have been in year 1, $28,000, and they would have left $111,000 on the table, or $100,000 on the table that they would never get back. But they were able to use our investment and our capital to do all 5 stores in the year 2020. From March, I think, all the way through October, we completed all 5 stores and all the measures that we did. So as you can see, the program itself, Energy Savings as a Service, allows you to address and tackle things that you would normally never get to over a long period of time. So it reduces your capital cycle and eliminates the capital expense altogether. That's the basic component of what we are providing you, and hoping that this type of a service might be able to fit in somewhere in your program to upgrade your facilities.
And Mike, thank you. Let me just add this. If you notice, Mike mentioned that we use local businesses. And so should this be something that can fit, we will be asking you to give us a list of small and minority businesses in your area that we could hire to do the work of installation, maintenance, and things of this nature.
Thank you.
That's all we have.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to see if any of my colleagues have any questions at this time. No? No questions. If we end up having any additional questions, we'll be sure to email you through our board clerk. So if any questions come up, again, I just want to remind the board there are additional documents on board docs, and we do now have this presentation as well. And I would encourage you all to review the information that's there, how we selected a vendor, and have these conversations. The other piece I want to uplift that I know that our CFO would have uplifted had she been here is that in board docs, it reports that there was a financial analysis. She herself, internally, the finance team has not been able to give their own financial analysis on whether this would actually end up costing us in the long run or savings or whatever the case may be. So she will do an independent financial analysis to determine, because she shared some concerns around these things with the board. Fortunately, she's out today, so she's not here to discuss that.
Great. Sometime after this meeting, we could engage in a conversation. I could lay out to you how we've done proof of concept pilots to show you how we come up with the ways that we can present some opportunities for you. We've done it with like a couple of locations where we've done the initial preliminary studies to present you the opportunities. Again, and that's something that we invested in ourselves.
Okay, thank you again.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. So no additional questions. We are going to postpone the discussion of the financial reports until the 8/26 business meeting. Again, want to wish our CFO a get well soon wishes. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over. Well, we have our September 2021 resolutions. Do you want to do that, or do you want to have the superintendent present Cresta first?
Up to you. We can do the presentation first, or we can pull up the resolutions on the screen.
I would actually prefer to do the superintendent's presentation at this time, and then we'll end with looking at reviewing September's resolutions, because they're only up for review.
Point of order?
Yes, Commissioner
Before we
Powell.
move on, I'm a little concerned that we had only one presentation, and that presentation was not the company that is being recommended.
Yeah, so again, when I was talking earlier and then you interrupted me to go back for a vote, I gave some of the pretext around that I invited these individuals to come and have a conversation about energy audits. At that time, I was not aware that we had anybody doing energy audits. In fact, the district had already partaked in the RFP process, made a selection, and so I requested that those documents be distributed in board docs for you all to review, in addition to the matrix for how they selected the company, because I wouldn't have even known how the company was selected. In addition to that, there was a financial analysis that they perform that our CFO has uplifted to state that she herself and the internal finance team did not provide that financial analysis, and she still wants to conduct that. So that is on there. And again,
I'm sorry, who's the they? Who's the they? Wendell or onsite? Who's the they?
For what, Commissioner Powell? Which part are you not following along?
3 sentences ago, you said
I requested these individuals to come to the board to give a presentation on energy audits. Okay, next. Then I found out that the district internally had already did a request for a proposal and selected a company.
Okay.
Then I requested that those documents be provided to the entire board, including the request for the proposal, including the matrix to do the selection, including whatever financial analysis they had, which is this company, internally would fall under Chief Mike Schmidt. So the conversation was had with Mike to present those documents to the full board. You can read it in here, Commissioner Powell.
So the they that you spoke of, the they was our facilities department, not on site, not Wendell?
Commissioner Powell, I don't want to play these games with you, ma'am. You know, ma'am, you can read.
I am trying to understand what you said. I have in front of me the RFP, but what you said, or the recommendation, but what you said was they were going to do a cost analysis. Who they?
They would have been either Chief Schmidt or the company that he selected, but that financial analysis is not from our CFO or our internal finance department. So I want to uplift that our CFO will provide her own independent financial analysis in the best interest of the district.
Well, the recommendation indicates that New York State has done a cost analysis.
So again, the CFO was not provided with that analysis. We have not seen that analysis because we have not voted on that company. This is all in the process of a request for a proposal and a selection made internally by our chief of operations. But the board has not voted on this organization.
That's not the question I asked. You spoke of cost analysis.
Commissioner
and
Powell, I'm going to have
saying-
you direct your questions to the superintendent and her team. I don't make these decisions for the request for proposal, or did I design the matrix for the selection for the organization that their company they're interested in moving forward with?
I'm just trying to understand what you are saying, because when
So
you
I'm going to
use
have you direct
pronouns-
your questions around this
when you
company
use
and the selection to the
pronouns-
superintendent and her team.
When you use pronouns, when there are 3 or 4 different organizations or individuals, it isn't clear who you're talking about. Now, you said the energy audits weren't done for any of the candidates. However, the recommendation itself states that the New York State has conducted a cost analysis. I said energy, I meant cost analysis for the recommended vendor.
And according to our CFO, she has not approved that analysis, nor agree with it, nor has had the opportunity for internally for the district to have its own financial analysis. That's all I'll uplift. Again, I'll ask you to direct your questions to the superintendent and her chief and her staff and administration if you have questions related to any of this information that's available to board docs to you.
Can I ask,
Yes, Dr. Jallo.
can I ask a question?
Yes.
And this question is to the superintendent. Are you putting forward a resolution for a company to do this type of audit?
Not tonight. We're still in the internal process, Dr. Jallo.
So how did these 2 different companies come to the attention of the board?
It came to the attention to Commissioner LeBron when we had the Finance Committee meeting on Friday, and this discussion entailed, and Chief Mike Schmidt provided some detail, and CFO Carlene Pierce provided information as well.
So I just think it's fair to just say exactly what the administration wants the board to react to or to take action on.
I didn't hear the first part.
Yeah, can you repeat that, Dr. Jallo?
And I think it's important for the board to understand what administration is in fact asking them to take action on or to consider. Does the administration plan to bring forward?
Yes, eventually, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, President White.
Yeah, I'm assuming that the work that they've been doing, and this is the first I've heard of it, would eventually find its way to the board somehow, some way. I'm just, the thing that sort of threw me a little bit is these people that we just heard from, they didn't sound like objective people. They sounded like they were making a pitch for business themselves. And it reminded me of our retreat when somebody was complaining about somebody pitching in advance of an RFP. So the concern that I have is that this vendor was on before us pitching their business and not first going to the administration or part of an RFP process. So that's the concern I have. I just think this is what we got before us today, no matter what the intentions were, is we got somebody pitching their business to us for the first time, and not in the normal way that someone normally pitches their business to the superintendent and or to an RFP, if that's where this is going. So I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable what's the irony of this is, we just had this discussion this weekend about someone with good intentions coming before us, and we were told, hey, wait a second, this is an appropriate forum for this. And ironically, we're here today, and they're not just telling us about energy conservation. They're pitching their business, make no mistake about it. And this is not the proper context for them to do that, I don't think.
Yeah, so I want to clarify, because President White, you can use names. I'm totally fine with saying that I objected to the fact that there was a board retreat and Commissioner Malloy had a vendor come in and present to the board a proposal for the board to be the selected vendor. The difference in this situation is that when I brought this up, I was already informed by Mike Schmidt in the finance previews that they have already put in months of work in selecting and had already moved forward with bringing this individual company forward to this board, and had done a number of work, including an analysis, again, that our CFO has not seen, nor does the CFO at this time agree to it, and at that time also expressed some concerns in the finance preview. So I'll leave it at that. However, I still had the opportunity at that point to say, no, I don't want these individuals to come. However, we don't know how internally who was selected, why they were selected at this time. So none of you would have known that this was even going on if I didn't say I want to bring these individuals in. However, let me just say this. There was already a selection for someone. It appears to be moving forward that the superintendent eventually will sign off on this and it will come before the board on a resolution. And my intentions were not to have a vendor sell us anything. I do, however, think it's important that if we're moving forward and if you look at the amount of what this contract would be, that we do our due diligence and figure out who else is out there. Again, I did not realize when I talked about an energy efficient audit, with my intentions being only that we continue to look at other ways to generate and savings and revenues, that the district had already partaked in the whole entire process and basically has a vendor selected. So I'll say that. So it's different from having only one vendor come in for a request for a proposal that other people, there were no other vendors. Where are the other vendors that for the board to select? There were none.
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I don't disagree that there ought to be a vigorous vetting of vendors, particularly when the law requires it. It was unclear this weekend whether the law required that or not. But in any event, I agree with you that this could be a substantial contract. I disagree with the notion that the superintendent has made a deal. It doesn't sound like to me that happened at all. It sounded like she and her team were doing their due diligence, looking at potential vendors. She's been in this business long enough to know she can't just give out a contract, particularly this size, to just anybody. She would have brought the information before the board. I think this is a safe assumption for me to say this. We would have been critical or supportive through our own due diligence, and we would have made a decision. Personally, to make the point that you make, which is a legitimate one, hey, this is something that is a significant business. I don't think, you said I can call out your name, I don't think you needed to bring in a vendor to pitch their business to make the point that the superintendent should do her due diligence in a transparent way, compliant with the law. I agree with you there. I absolutely agree with you there, particularly as something this important. But respectfully, you don't make that point by bringing in a vendor to sell his business when nobody else can do that. I agree with you. This is something that is so important. It's a potential cost-saving initiative, which the superintendent apparently is looking into. If you had concerns about her approach, respectfully, the way to do it was not to put somebody in the spotlight and say, hey, listen, this is what we can do for you.
President White.
The approach, respectfully, I still have the floor. Respectfully, the approach should have been, hey, Madam Superintendent, I got some concerns about this. And in fact, I even got a person that you can talk to or submit to do an RFP. But we should not, as you told us over the weekend, we should not be utilizing this opportunity for someone to pitch their business when all the other vendors who might do this, the ones that she's talked to and other people talked to, have not been afforded a similar opportunity.
President White, I hear you. However, this is a public meeting. So again, I asked for them to come to the public meeting and again, invited them, had a conversation. Sure, let the board learn about this. However, I was not informed until Friday in the finance previews that the district had taken any of this and move forward with an RFP, none of this. The board, this is the first time this board has had an in-depth conversation about energy audits. Like, this is the first time this board has had the conversation. The vendor has already been selected. I promise you that in finance previews, had you been there, Mike Schmidt was fighting for his life for these individuals that he selected. They're not going to go with another vendor, so I don't want to play these games. Again, my intentions were for these vendors to come in so we can have an in-depth conversation about energy efficient audits so that we can look at ways to generate revenue. Had I done that in an executive session or in a backhanded way, I'm doing it in a public finance meeting. What you all tried to do was bring in only one vendor to be the person selected to do anti-racism training for the board and do it at a board retreat without audience and not in the public eye. Yeah, and I had an issue with that. I am bringing this forth in the public eye. You may not agree with it. I didn't ask them to come in and propose their business to give them no upper hand. In fact, when I opened the meeting, I said the district has already undergone a process and has basically selected a vendor, but I have still asked them to come in and present. I literally opened on record that way. I mean, if you weren't paying attention or anybody else wasn't paying attention, but the notion that I have to sit here and like read each document in board docs because you're unable to process one sentence from the other when you're an adult. In fact, some of you are twice, 3 times my age. I'm not doing that. So,
Commissioner LeBron,
it's ridiculous. No, that's just my opinion. You are older than me, and if y'all can't follow from one sentence to the other, it's not my job to spoon feed it to you all.
You can be respectful and articulate your opinion.
Yeah, I'm moving forward. So with that said.
You do not have to insult people about their age or their intelligence.
You don't need to. You're not my father, President White.
I know I'm not.
You are not my father. You don't need to dictate to me how I speak. You can control your mouth and how you talk, but you don't get to control what I say.
Commissioner LeBron.
It doesn't matter about rules. Our rules don't tell me that I can't speak my truth. That's it. Our rules don't tell me I can't speak my truth. This is my truth.
They tell you how to speak your truth.
We're going to move forward.
And dignity.
No, I didn't sign off on that, so let me just put that for the record.
Only board
put that on the record.
Yep,
I'm the only board member that did not sign and will not sign.
Of conduct.
Nope, I absolutely won't.
That's correct. You are the only board member who did not sign off on standard of conduct.
I will not sign that.
You're right.
I will not sign it, so we can keep things moving. Superintendent Myers, you're up with your update. Thank you.
Point of order.
Nope, no point of order. I'm not acknowledging you. Superintendent Myers,
Point of order.
you're up.
There's still 2 people requesting permission to speak, and one of the things that we evaluate ourselves on each and every meeting is whether we give everyone the opportunity to speak and
Did I call on you? Because I'm pretty sure I'm chairing the meeting and I did not call on you and I moved forward with asking the superintendent to give her presentation.
And this will reflect.
Yeah, that can reflect. Superintendent Leslie Myers.
Commissioner LeBron, before I start, I do want to just say that we did have the conversations in the Finance Committee meeting. And Chief Mike Schmidt will be has provided information that will outline process and the things that you asked for, and that will be forthcoming in the Friday letter. So just point of information for that just last piece. I'm moving on to talk about coronavirus relief funds, and this is an update. Tonight, my presentation will update each of the commissioners and those who are listening in person and online about federal money that's coming to the Rochester City School District in the form of coronavirus relief funds. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the status of the application that has been submitted to the New York State Department of Education and the contents of that application. As you know, the strategic plan is the guiding framework and document for the Rochester City School District. And if you'll just note specifically under collaborate, where we say build strong community, the focus, or I'm sorry, under lead, foster dynamic leadership, my focus and emphasis will be managing school and district resources effectively. So just a quick recap. The focus of tonight's presentation is CRSA, and it's that middle box in which the Rochester City School District anticipates receiving approximately $87.5 million. We have submitted an initial or first application to the New York State Department of Education. We submitted that on Monday, August 9th, for approximately $45 million. Our total allocation, again, is $87.5 million. Priorities for the use of CRSA were identified through several means: alignment to our strategic plan, support of the district's improvement plans in both academics and finances, the bilingual corrective action plan, for example, and there's a link to the research for that relative to best practice. Most importantly, I want to uplift the fact that the activities that were brought forward from over 600 pieces of feedback that we received from varied stakeholders when we held the forums with the Rochester City School District. As per the New York State Department of Education requirements specifically for the Rochester City School District, all proposed expenditures in this first CRSA application have been extensively reviewed by our Rochester City School District team and approved by our state monitor, Dr. Shelley Jallow. The next several slides that I will show you this evening break down each initiative that was prioritized in our initial CRSA application. And the information on these slides can be found on our ARP website in a comprehensive document detailing specific information for each initiative. The first initiative for which funds were earmarked were to support district-wide infrastructure improvement. Say that 5 times fast, that's a mouthful. Of note here is the fact that we really wanted to leverage technology to update and digitize certain district systems, which includes updating and upgrading student record retention systems, bus routing systems, and cyber security systems, which are all critical to our functioning. This initiative also includes funding for efforts to improve digital communication with students and families through social media as well as other venues, and so we can advertise to further showcase the accomplishments of school and district efforts. This is a direct effort to mitigate charter school, private, and parochial, as well as urban-suburban competition. The next priority identified is effective use of federal funds. This will ensure that the district is well equipped to manage the huge influx of money and to maintain business continuity in the future for our district. Included here is temporary staffing to oversee and monitor programs funded with the stimulus grant funds, services that will support the evaluation to show value added of both programmatic and fiscal return on investment of our funds. Staffing to support the finance department in managing the district's finances and related business services. High quality teaching and learning for all is a specific focus for the Rochester City School District, and it's aimed at creating an environment where all students have access to and engage in high quality teaching and learning. This area includes updated instructional materials that Dr. Black has been speaking to you about for students, temporary staffing that will allow increased access to specialized instruction in arts, music, physical education, and the expansion of career and technology education programs. Additionally, in response to the district's academic plan, the Office of School Chiefs will receive additional staffing to allow them to bolster their supports to school principals and their schools. And this is particularly important for those schools that are in receivership. We also are investing in staff capacity. Many of the stakeholder groups, the Board of Education, as well as our own interest and priority is around investing in staff capacity. We're working specifically in this area to create an aspiring leaders pipeline and the creation of a turnaround school leaders program. And I just have to note here that the cabinet has been in training for the past 2 days, and we've had a specific emphasis on turnaround leadership to ensure that we're able to lead that and that trickles throughout the organization. So specific activities to support this work include consultant services and stipends for facilitators and participants, supporting supplies and materials for the programs. This initiative focuses on creating programs that nurture, identify, and retain an effective, diverse staff that have the desire, the belief, and most importantly, knowledge and skills to improve high-quality services for students and families in the district. Next, the CURSA funds will be used to modernize the district's antiquated PeopleSoft business enterprise system. This is a direct response to the district's financial plan and will create significant efficiencies that result in accurate data gathering and will eliminate the manual business and data management practices that we currently have in place. The next initiative is school redesign and program diversification. Using CURSA funds in this manner will allow us to enhance the district-wide portfolio of academic programs. This will help us to ensure that our schools are designed intentionally for the modern world, are attractive to students who may be exploring, leaving for charter schools or other school options, and will equip students with complex skills needed to be successful beyond graduation. Student health and safety is particularly paramount given where we are in the midst of COVID-19 and the Delta variant. Here, we're using CURSA funds to upgrade our cafeterias to include salad bars, which has been a topic of conversation for many months, as well as funding to support coordinated and direct response to COVID-19. This includes temporary staffing for COVID testing and case management at both the school and district levels, as well as PPE. Board of Education commissioners, you can certainly expect to see additional funding earmarked for COVID-19 response and future applications of both CURSA and ARP. And finally, but certainly not least, funding to enhance supports to English language learners. This specifically includes at this time additional funding for translation and interpretation services at school and district levels, data collection systems, which has been outlined by the State Education Department for progress monitoring of student growth, and achievement in English and home languages. We also are working to increase access for all English language learners and multilingual learners to ensure, as Commissioner LeBron has mentioned, materials in their home languages. I wanted to call your attention to other resources that were made available to you to specifically reference what I have just mentioned. And again, this is relative to our initial or first application of the CURSA funds. These include the CURSA Round 1 expenditure report, where it provides you a line-by-line spreadsheet of each discrete expenditure that demonstrates alignment to each expenditure with our district strategic plan, as well as provides details for each expenditure that includes intended impact and metrics for progress monitoring, which is important. You also received a PDF of the district's formal FS10 budget document. This document is the NYSED required summary, New York State Department of Education, required summary of the expenditures that are proposed in the CURSA plan. So moving forward, a few considerations as we continue to move forward through this process. As discussed in the first CURSA application that we discussed tonight, it's currently under review at the State Education Department. Our internal grants finance department is in the process of setting up the grant so that when approval is granted, funds can be accessed immediately. Additionally, the grants finance department is in the process of finalizing the CURSA cash flow analysis. This exercise will provide us with critical information that will ensure that our request for reimbursement from the New York State Department of Education is in alignment with cash flow patterns to ensure that the district continues to maintain the strong financial footing and the trajectory that we're on. Finally, approximately $42 million of CURSA will be applied for in the second application. Planning for the use of CURSA funds is taking place in tandem with the American Rescue Funds planning to ensure that we are not doubling our efforts and that we are fully maximizing the funds. And we want to make sure that there's no interplay between the two. So with that, that is a brief update on where we are relative to CURSA. Commissioner LeBron, and I open up the floor for questions, comments, or feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start to the left. Do you have any questions, Commissioner Clark?
No, not at this
time. Okay. Rebecca?
I do have a couple of questions, if that's okay. So looking at the district-wide portion, and I apologize, I haven't looked at the breakdown so much, but are there any district-wide implementations that you're worried about, any subscription fees or maintenance fees coming on the back end of them? Just specifically looking at like communication enhancements, the different opportunities for software. Sorry.
Ask that question again. You're asking about fees?
So with the district-wide infrastructure improvements,
yes, I'm here.
There's a listing of communication enhancements as well as law software and a couple of management software. So I'm wondering if, since we're supposed to focus on one-time expenses, are there things that are coming down the pipeline as far as maintenance fees, as far as subscriptions?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I can speak that there are some of the software that we have asked for that are actually serving as a bridge as we begin to upgrade our Oracle software. So for example, the law software that has been requested, we're building in a tool in the Oracle software upgrade that actually will handle that work. So we're asking for this software to be a one-time expenditure that will be handled once we have that upgrade, and it will be carried forward in the new system. So it would not be a expense that would be incurred after the funding has gone away.
President White.
No, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Adams?
No, I'm just inhaling all of this right now.
Okay,
next round.
okay. Commissioner Malloy?
Still processing it. I'll have questions later.
Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. On your moving forward slide, you state that the application is under review at NICEAD. Can you tell us what their approval timeline is? When will we know that this plan is
Well, it's been submitted and hi. We anticipate that their review will occur and we will get a decision within the next 2 weeks. So we're hoping that once we get that, our feedback will be positive and then we can start to expend the funds.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Dr. Jallo, do you have any questions before I ask my questions?
No, not a question, maybe a comment, but I can wait.
Okay. So I, again, in finance previews, so again, for the community who may be watching, listening, we do preview some of these topics beforehand, myself and the administration, along with our board parent rep. And one of the things that we requested was the actual documentation of application that was sent to the state with the details. So it's great to have like these visuals that give some high arching overview, but I really wanted to understand what this meant in greater detail, and we would find that information in the application. So that's where I want to focus tonight, my questions. It is on board docs for the board to review. So I just want to uplift a few things that when I was going through this application, a lot of these positions that are being asked to be funded through this appear to be positions that would be either administration level in central office. I was not sure what hiring a turnaround, what was the title for it? It was like a high school turnaround when some of the justifications for having a chief academic officer and also another chief for schools that were in receivership was to address some of these turnaround issues. The other piece though that I have to uplift and was really upset to read was student health and safety. So while there were a lot of positions that again appeared to be central office positions, there are 2 part-time FTEs staff members to assist with COVID case management. That to me was unacceptable. 2 full-time employees to manage district-wide COVID testing. Again, with the Delta variant and testing still being an issue that we are pushing for, this is where testing should be covered under, and certainly I do want to advocate that it's going to take more than 2 full-time individuals. 52 full-time COVID aid staffing to cover social distancing, containment rooms, and other COVID-related concerns. But then when you break it down, it was only 1 staff person per school or program. Again, certainly that's not going to be enough for that. And the total spent, that we're saying that we're going to spend in this area was really a little over $2 million, where the bulk of this is going to other things that, again, I don't see the correlation to COVID. The other thing I just want to uplift for the board and the community to note, I don't know if the community has access to this document, Kalia? Do they have access to this on board docs?
The submission to the state?
Yeah.
Not just yet.
Okay. The other thing I just want to uplift that if you look at the total number of this application, that we only submitted for a maximum direct cost base of $42 million. And I wanted to understand if CRESTA is for 87, why our application is for a little bit less than half. That's my question for now. But I do want to raise those concerns that what we've budgeted for student health and safety is not adequate, and we certainly should not be increasing positions in central office, whether they're consultants and temporary only. That's not where this funding should be directed during COVID.
So thank you, Commissioner LeBron. As I shared, there's additional funding or requests for funding that will come for health and safety. So we're not done. And then you asked about it was for, at this point, 42 million. Remember, all of our requests have to go through approval process, and that's what's been approved to date. So we will have another submission to maximize the approximately 87.5 million. But we do have to go through the approval process. And some of those other requests, we did not either give adequate documentation, or we needed to further add additional information. So it's not that we're leaving 45 million on the table, absolutely not. But it does go through a process, and Dr. Jallo is the final approval with that.
Do you know when you'll have to submit that second part by?
I think, Janelle, tell me the date again.
It's going to be submitted with our ARP funding submission. So we have that timeline for our ARP funding submission request, and that's when we will request the remaining CURSA fund.
I'll give you this, we'll give the specific date in the Friday letter, okay?
Thank you, I
We can just
appreciate
make
that.
Sure.
Rebecca, did you have another question?
And this might be for Janelle. As far as, so there was a slide for investing in staff capacity, and it mentions programs, it mentions specific programs, creation of Aspiring Leaders Pipeline Program and Turnaround Schools Leaders Program. Are these existing programs, or are they going to be created? And how, is there a process, a plan? I mean, I'm sure there's a plan.
There is a plan. Actually, this is not Dr. Morris. This would be Dr. Miller through Human Capital Initiatives. We have looked at a few things. This is uplifted in the academic plan that for the district, but we also just have had historical issues with not the recruitment necessarily, but really retaining. So this is to begin to build that strong pipeline from the classroom to the entry level of administration, which is assistant principal, to build that strong principal pipeline, and then eventually come into positions at the central office level. So Dr. Miller has presented on this previously in the HR committee, and it has very specific goals, objectives, and expected outcomes of how the program will be run. But this is not currently formally in place.
We have one more question. if
No,
that's
go
okay.
ahead, Rebecca.
In the school redesign, there's a line for high school redesign consultant. What is the parameters of how that's going to be used? And is there anyone in mind as far as if somebody could elaborate on what that means?
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we were employing the best innovation and best practices available, conceptualize and support the development of new rigorous high school programs that will attract, as the superintendent has described, many of our students back to our district. So by contracting with a consultant that this is their specialty and their expertise, we aim to ensure that we develop programs that will meet the current best practices and innovation, and that will allow us to get that attraction to the students who want to come back to our district. We do not currently have any consultants in mind. We will go through the approval process, through the RFP process, to obtain consultants that would work with us on this process.
Sorry, my mic is off. Any additional questions? Dr. Jallo, did you want to give comment at this time?
No, yes, I just wanted to share that the CRSA traditionally is not in two parts, that this was an opportunity afforded the district so that they could get started spending their money rather than wait until the full plan was completed, representing $87 million. So that's why you hear the reference to part one and part two, but traditionally this is not a part one Part 2 type of spending plan, but for this district, that opportunity was afforded to them so that they could get started. The other thing that I want commissioners to realize is that unlike many of the other districts, all of this has to be done through reimbursements. You have to spend the money first and then get reimbursed, which means the district has to be extra careful with cash flow so that you don't run out of cash while you're waiting to get reimbursed from the state with these monies. I was required by the commissioner to not only review the spending plan, but sign a letter saying that I had reviewed it and had approved it. So I am very specific as to what I'm looking for, and maybe that is why you see that we're going to have a part 2 also in making sure that the money is spent according to strategic goals and plans that the district has to follow.
Thank you, Dr. Jallo. I do have a question as also under high quality teaching and learning for all. Again, on the application, it doesn't have a page number, which is, I think, a little weird that we didn't put page numbers on the application. But on, I think, page 5 on the PDF version, if you're looking at it from Board Docs, right under that heading, the RISE independent monitors, like, I don't know if that's her entire salary, but she's on here, and I'm just trying to understand why her consulting fees would be under Krista. I'm not understanding why that would be there.
That was something when we were in conversations with the New York State Education Department, because we had not anticipated to have that as an option, but we were strongly encouraged to continue given that we were in the midst of COVID. And they shared with us that using these funds was allowable under the funds.
To move her salary
Correct.
under these, okay.
So that was moved out of general fund, right, into this.
Okay.
But the goal is to have that support and at the end of the 21-22 school year. So that would be a non-recurring, which is a good use of the funds, to have a non-recurring expense.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Oh, Commissioner Powell.
I have a question for Dr. Jallo. In your remarks, you referred to Part 1 and Part 2. Our Board Docs items are labeled Round 1. Is that what you're referring to? Mm-hmm. Is the Round 1?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I was like thrown off when you said Part 1 and Part 2. Okay, thank you.
The expectation was that SRSA, the entire SRSA amount was spent, I think, by the first week of August, if I'm correct.
And you're saying that there will be a round 2?
There will be a round 2 because we've only spent half the money. Yes.
This presentation only covers half of.
Exactly. What you see in this presentation represents the 42.
Okay.
Point.
I can't tell you how thrown off I was when you were talking about Part 1 and Part 2 when I was.
If you add the numbers in the presentation, it does not add up to 87.
Thank you.
I will add, certainly thank Dr. Jallo for her oversight and her participation in this, but I also need to add that we do have that extra step, right, that we have to have her approval of this. So whereas other districts, they were able to submit, we need to have that. So it takes a little bit more time. That's all I'm adding. It takes a little bit more time to get to that, to make sure that it fulfills, making sure, again, as she said, that we can have the cash flow be appropriate so that does not jam us up, and that it aligns to the academic plan, the fiscal plan, the strategic plan. And I also want to uplift, if you would just indulge me, Commissioner LeBron, I do want to thank certainly finance. I want to thank the grants department. Carrie Pecourt and Steve Lamort have been incredible in this process and leading us. And we actually recently had an activity that will really help to propel us and to ensure that these American Rescue Funds moving forward really do support and uplift our strategic plan so we can meet those targets and those benchmarks that we've identified as the team. This has been a group effort and certainly yeoman's work, but I did want to acknowledge those two teams. The cabinet has been working very hard with their respective teams, but Carrie and Steve have really been the point. Glendine has been involved, so I just wanted to thank those individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. I don't know what the state ultimately is going to decide on these, but I would ask the state that I know that these positions, although the way that they're listed is capped out at most of them are capped. These are still very significant number of dollars. To me, I just want to put this on record. We're not, based on this plan, spending enough on actually opening schools safely for students and providing our students and our staff in the buildings all of the services that they need. And what I see is a lot of positions, again, in central office. And when folks have a chance on this board to review those details, I would ask that you look at the RCSD CRISA FS 10 round 1 that's signed, that's in board docs, because it shares those details. I just would not, I know we're not voting on this, but I would not support this as it stands right now. Okay, moving on, we have our September 2021 resolutions to review. And Kalia, you're going to be pulling those up for the on screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me know where you want to navigate, and I will.
Yeah. Which number is your one?
They're not in the numbering sequence because this is the pre-packet.
Yeah. But you're starting with gift acceptance, just one. Any questions on the Shore Foundation's donation? Okay, number 2 or 3, which is Penfield Central School District, has donated 10 boxes of leveled literacy intervention services. No questions. How about number 3, Martin Sutter and Suzanne Sutter Family Fund of Rochester Area Community Foundation, $10,000 to be utilized for Get Ready for Life for Edison Tech and Occupational Center. Resolution number 4. Any questions on that? Yeah, with Saturday. Yeah, so I just want to uplift. Our parents brought this up at the finance preview, so I do want to uplift it on record, and she can speak to it too. But there was a concern around the schedule for these resolutions. If you look at the times, it said Monday through Friday, 6 to 7, and then Saturdays, 11:15 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. And there was just some questions around whether students are expected to come in for just 1 hour, or if this was going to be over Zoom, or what this was. I don't know if you guys have an answer for that at this time, but I think we had some robust conversations around the schedules.
Carmine, is that something you could answer, please, and thank you? Take your time.
We're like, oh.
I'm an athlete. When coach calls me to the podium, you hustle. So if you, just to see, if you see the $41 an hour, that is the direct service to students. That will happen after school, and you'll see those times. They usually fluctuate after school hours, 5 to 5, and then Saturday, 9 to 11. The other hours that are at $35 an hour are planning that happen outside of those times. So it's either planning, or there's also teacher leaders that are also getting hours as well. So there's, in there, you'll see the times we're trying not to overlap those times. So the times are 3:45 to $41 an hour for the rest happening outside.
Okay,
Does
so,
that answer?
yeah, so, and Rebecca, you can ask for clarification. So number 4, where it says Monday through Friday, 6 to 7, that's just their planning time. Is it safe to say that's just kind of like an estimated planning time, but they really could plan right after they get done with school if they're not teaching extended learning and so forth?
Correct. We just
Okay.
didn't want to put the time in there as the same time as the director. This
Right.
is done outside.
So my question relates mostly to, there's all different schools listed, and each school has a completely different number of teachers and is focused on a completely different number of students. And I was wondering from an equity perspective, how was this chosen? How were things scheduled for students? Is this an after-school? Like,
So,
where are we at?
Yeah, so this is a federally funded program that supports tutoring and enrichment activities outside of the school day that enhances and complements their regular instruction. So it depends on how much funds they have and what they want to design, and usually asking for student voice in terms of some of the design as well.
Carmine, I do want to add the other thing was that principals and directors are named and not necessarily schools. And so the request was that we actually name the principal and the school that they're representing, because not everyone's going to recognize the name and understand what school it's associated with.
Okay, yep. Could you just point me to where that is? So
On all of them.
Okay, all right.
Kalia has that feedback, though. Our board clerk has that feedback for you all. I just want to.
Sent on Friday.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, just as an FYI, but the way that these were written, for whatever reason, they have like the deputy superintendent, and then the chief, you're listed on some of these, but like principal Brenda
principal.
Torres Santana,
School 35, okay, yep, got
yeah,
it.
you would know that,
Yep,
but the public
absolutely.
needs to know what school we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for I remembered we'd had that
Yeah,
conversation.
we had this
Yeah,
conversation,
thank
and so,
you.
I mean, I think it's in the resolution too, but we want to make it very clear for anyone reading the resolution from the very beginning what school we're talking about. So thank you. It was just, thank you, Carmen.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dr. Peluso.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Palooza. Any additional questions on these resolutions? These are all 21st Century Community Learning Center grants, and they go all the way down. It was like A through Z almost. Yeah, right? I see TU. It ends at U. It ends at U. So any questions from this resolution for this grant from A through U? Okay. All right, that brings us to page 19, which is resolution number 5. Oh, another 21st Century grant. And this one goes until no 32 or 33? 32. Ends at 32. Any questions from those pages? All right, any questions from page 33, which starts resolution 6, which is Title I and targeted grants? Number 34, which is resolution 7, and starts another 21st Century Community Learning Center grants. Any questions about the resolution for BOCES and the school library systems? Any contract awards, which is resolution 11? Number 12? 13, 14, 15, 16, and these end on page 47. And that's it. So if there are no other additional questions on the resolutions, that is the first review of the September 2021 And at this point, I'm going to ask our board clerk to administer the board poll, and I'm going to ask for a motion to close the finance meeting.
Madam Chairperson, before you do that, it sounds to me you're coming close to closing the meeting. There's a couple of matters that don't relate to finance that I did want to address to the board, just general matters, house cleaning matters. Do you want me to do that now or wait till you do the poll or what?
Can we close the finance and then restart the meeting under?
Well, once your meeting ends, it's over. Because there is no other meeting.
Okay.
This will only take a second. It's
Okay.
just general house cleaning stuff. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing is, I'm the perfect person for this role because I was very late in turning in my board evaluations. I just turned it in today. I admitted that as much to Commissioner Malloy. It's been a busy month for me. There are still some outstanding board evaluations that are self-evaluations that are due. Again, I hear you, with those folks who haven't had a chance to do it. I was there until this evening. Please take the time, if you can find it, to provide that to Commissioner Malloy, and that would be appreciated. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask with the chairperson's permission is for Superintendent Myers-Small to give an update on the whole quarterly report just very briefly. As you all know, the state requires that the district provide an update with respect to how we're doing with our whole financial and academic plan. There was a question raised by Commissioner LeBron and myself about the board having an opportunity to see that submission before it went to Albany, and Superintendent Myers-Small has an update to give us on that.
Sure, thank you, President White and Commissioner LeBron. Good evening again. The Rochester City School District, because we are assigned in a state monitor, has many requirements that surround that. One of them is to submit an annual report to the New York State Department of Education on August 15th. As President White shared, there was mentioned that there needed to be a vote, which it doesn't need to be a vote, but I certainly agree that it would be helpful for the Board of Education, the commissioners, to see the dissertation that we wrote for submission. With that, I made a request to the New York State Department of Education via phone and email, and they have granted an extension of the deadline. They've moved it to August 30th. I had planned in my, actually I was going to do the superintendent report, but I think we really should put it under new business. This is the first time that that we are going through this process. So I will do, with the board's permission, a report under new business that outlines the report. You all will have ample time to read it. It has 10 sections and 4 appendices, and it outlines everything from an executive summary which provides an overall overview of our progress. And then we outline our strengths, our areas of challenge, where we need to focus or we plan to focus for the 21-22 school year. We provide an analysis of our fiscal situation, of academics, and then we have some appendices that outline our quarterly report, which is what you're used to seeing in providing feedback. So this next quarter would be April, May, and June. So we have our self-rating on that, and then our progress for the entire year, which is December through June for the Rochester City School District, where we landed. So that is approximately a 150-page document, about 95 pages with 40-something pages of appendices. So that will be submitted to the board shortly in PDF form for your review. I will go over that again pending the board's permission under new business at our business meeting next Thursday. And then the goal is we need to quickly turn that around after that time and get that in.
So just for procedurally, so you're going to give us this PDF in the next day or two?
Yes, you'll have it.
And so is there a time period with it before the Thursday meeting? Would you like our comments before the Thursday meeting, or you would take them afterwards? In other words, do you want to have an opportunity to address, if somebody should have some questions or comments, do you want them to get them to you in advance of that Thursday meeting, or?
That would be helpful, but I'm telling you, I've looked at that document so much, and just like a dissertation, it becomes one with you. I know pretty much that document like the back of my hand. So I know that questions will probably come up, but questions ahead of time would be helpful, but aren't absolutely necessary.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that?
I love board question logs. Yes, Commissioner LeBron.
No, I just want to uplift and thank you, Dr. Myers and President White too, because I actually was surprised when President White agreed. I started replying. I was like, wait a minute. So I just want to say thank you because yes, I did feel that it is important for us to review it, but I also remember when Dr. Aquino was here, we did have an opportunity to kind of see what the administration was submitting, but also recognize the fact that there were parts that the board was responsible to do, and there are still parts that the board is responsible to do in this report. So for you to answer as an administration on our behalf, and then we don't even know what's being submitted on behalf of the board, that conversation needs to be had here on public and on record, and then that way we can make sure we're all on the same page. And I wasn't sure if we had to vote on it or not, so thank you for that clarification. But certainly I do think it's important for us to know what the state is getting and what we're saying we agree or disagree with.
And in the future, our team, you know, this is our, no excuse, but this is our first time going through this, right?
Yeah.
It's quite daunting. And I know that another district was granted an extension for different reasons. So we are not, the cheese stands alone in this either. But we'll work on, Dr. Morris and Ms. Melody Martinez-Davis, we'll work on a timeline so that, because I really wanted to hit that August 15th deadline, because don't forget, Dr. Jallo has the wonderful task up next to review that, and she has about 2 weeks. She's like the dissertation chair going over our contents. So she has 2 weeks to do that, so that pushes her timeline back. So we, you know, again, we wanted to get that in on time, but I respect and honor the fact that the board would like to see it. But then remember, she has to review it and then provide her feedback to us around agreement, disagreement, questions, et cetera. So just wanted to make sure that that was on the table as well and known.
Thank you.
Okay, in response to the request in the last meeting, the board meeting poll link is in your board docs for you to click on that and complete right now.
Am I taking that, Callie, or is it just, is it too?
Yes, you are taking
Me
it
too.
as well.
Okay.
It's in the executive content. You'll see a link that says board meeting poll, August 17 finance call. If you click on that, it takes you to the Google Doc.
Okay. And with that, can I ask for a motion, because they can continue doing the board poll, right, after the meeting officially?
Yes,
Yeah.
let me just launch that really quickly.
Okay. You're going to launch it now for them?
For the motion, I'm going to launch the
Okay.
motion. If you scroll all the way down.
Right here, under number 7A, it should say board meeting poll. Yeah, and when you click on it, it should bring you to the board doc, yeah, to the Google Doc. Bakalia is going to launch the vote, but can I get a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
A second? Got that, Commissioner Malloy, President White?
And you may now vote.
All those in favor? I don't see it.
Aye.
Aye. There we go.